one of my heroes, Father Richard Rohr. Now, he sends out meditations every morning, and you can get them on your cell phone or your email, and they're really good. And I ran across one called One of a Kind, and I want to share with you what he has written because it really goes into what our show is about tonight. So, this is Richard Rohr writing. My friend, sister of St. Joseph and Professor Mary Beth Ingham, knows John Duns Scotus inside and out. Over a decade ago, we spoke together at a conference in Albuquerque called Holding the Tension. Today, I share her insights from Duns Scotus's teaching on hexidity, or thisness, drawn from that conference. What is hexidity? It's you. It's the unique identity inherent in each being. Each one of us has been given our gift, and that's our little hexy. It's what makes me, me, and not somebody else. Hexy cannot be cloned. It is the part of me that is not to be replicated. So, I'm not just one of a kind, and you're not just one of a kind. We are each not just one of a kind. We are each one in an eternity. No pressure. Each of us has come with a gift. And if we do not give our gift, the world misses out. Hexidity is a term invented by Duns Scotus to capture the ineffable. It's that which I cannot name within myself. No amount of self-help exercises will exhaust the mystery that is me. So the good news is that I can never figure myself out. I can always surprise myself. Since before the foundation of the world, God has longed to be one with us. Jesus is the mutuality of God in creation. The incarnation is God's presence in our world, not an event of the past. The incarnation is still going on in our lives, and our vocation is to join God's dynamic, incarnate energy in the world and to be that presence wherever we find ourselves. Duns Scotus writes, "You ask me, what is hexy? Well, what is this thing which the individual difference is taken?" And that's what that is, the individual difference. Is it matter or form or the composite? I give you this answer. It's just this. You're just yourself. Live with it. Here I am. I'm just me, and all I can do is be me. That's the only thing I can do, and I can do it better than anybody else. If I don't do it, nobody will do it. So often we spend our lives trying to be other people. Yet God says, I made you, and I like the you I've made. So just do your best and be yourself, and I'll be there to help you. It's not something we have to do alone, but something we grow into. Alan Morton, a Franciscan theologian and philosopher, said that hexidity invests each person with a unique value as one's singularity wanted and loved by God, quite apart from any trait that people share with anybody else, or any contribution he or she might make to society. Hexidity is our personal gift from God. Part of our vocation is to appreciate ourselves as the pearl of great price, because God does. We get to discover ourselves as the treasure in the field and to rejoice with God in the wondrous work that God does in each of our lives. And you can also look into the Gospel of Matthew for more of that, chapter 13, 44 through 46. So each of us have this in our life, quite independent of any contribution we might make to society, any quantitative way of measuring. So the idea of what we're reading tonight is the fact that you were made on purpose. I was made on purpose. There is no life that was made on accident. And each one of us does bear that special gift, that thing that only we can do. And it is a shame when we spend so much time trying to be somebody else. Because while we're trying to be somebody else, we're missing our entire calling on earth. You know, I was supposed to be a nurse. That's what my mom thought I would be when I grew up. And it would have been great, but I don't like the sight of blood, and I hate getting sick. And I don't like being around people who are sick, which is funny because I've been a hospice chaplain. But but the medical field wasn't for me. And there's nothing wrong with being a nurse if that's what you are called to do. And had I followed that, I'm sure I could have learned the book knowledge. I'm sure I could have learned how to give injections and whatever else I needed to do. But I would be doing a kind of work I wasn't made for. One of the jobs I did in seminary was I worked as a newspaper pressman. I printed some of the newspapers that you would read out for LA Daily News, and I also subbed at some other shops, Dow Jones, which is Wall Street Journal, and Cal Roto. So I learned different kinds of printing. And brothers and sisters, I hated it every night. Every night I would go into work, I had a stomach ache. Now, there's nothing wrong with the printing field. And I had people I worked with that lived the print. They loved it. And they could make colors come out of that press like you would not believe. They could make the print come to life darn near. And they loved what they did. That was their calling. And it was a important job they did. But it wasn't mine. It was good for helping me pay for school, helping me pay for the family. But it wasn't my calling. I'm grateful that I had the job as long as I did. And yes, I did stick around long enough to get my journeyman's card as a pressman, because I do believe you should always have a plan B just in case what I think I'm supposed to be doing is not. But I've also had other jobs. I've done entertainment. I've been a professional comedian. I've done a lot of different things through the years. And each one showed me different potentials. But I didn't really find my true calling until I went to the priesthood. This is what God created me to do. And whatever God created you to do, it's just as noble. And I've gotten to serve with a lot of really wonderful people along the way. And one of them I want to get a shout out to right now, who's listening up in the Victorville area. I know the name of her town. It's just going right from my head right now. But my good friend Linda Love, who's tuned in. If she better be tuned in. I was told she'd be tuned in. If you're not, confessions tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Somebody give her the message. But we did a lot of work together in hospice, and also my guests will be here tonight, Rodney Brumpkin. We all three worked together for a while at a place called Hospice of the Valleys, and had a really great time working together before we went to different agencies and such. But each one of us has a calling. And I'm going to embarrass Linda for a second and tell you a little bit about her calling. She had such an ability, and she had such healing hands. In addition to being a certified health aide, she was also a licensed massage therapist. And she could go in there and take people who are in absolute agony and very lovingly help them relax, help them to be okay with the pain. And she has a real ministry with that. And that's has been her calling. So whatever your calling is, know that it's valid. This is what God created you to do. And don't let someone else tell you what that calling is supposed to be, because they can't know. It's within you. And when you follow that, you will find your bliss. And there's no other way to describe it. It's like trying to tell you about the flavor of vanilla ice cream. I can tell you about the chemicals. I can tell you about the color. I can tell you the temperature. But until you taste vanilla ice cream, you've not experienced it. Well, the same as finding out what your call is. What sounds like it would really be fun to you? Then go do that for a living. That doesn't mean there won't be work involved. For heaven's sakes, I had to go to school. They don't just, well, I take that back. There are a couple of mail-order places where I guess you can just write in. But those of us in more the traditional churches, you have to go to school for this, and it's a good thing because it's a good idea to know what you're talking about before you try to teach it to other people. And it was hard work. As some of you know, I'm dyslexic, and so I had to work probably harder than some because of the problem of dyslexia. But everything I studied, I loved. It came so naturally. It would almost be like I knew what would be on the next page before I turned it. And you have a calling that's that way for you. Find out what your expression is, what your gift is, because you can do that better than anybody else in the world. And God didn't just make you and forget about you. God doesn't do that. And I think one of the reasons we have so much anger in the world right now is people are doing things they weren't meant to do. They're not following their bliss. And also we have a lot of problem with unprocessed grief and unprocessed anger. And so we have a lot of things that are manifesting themselves because people are getting away from their natural way of living. Now, I'm not saying, that you have to eat all natural foods. I know it sounds like that. That's not where I'm coming from. But there's nothing wrong with that either. But when we spend our life trying to be somebody other than who we truly are, how can that equate to happiness? I hear people sometimes say that every day they die a little more when they go to work because they're doing something they absolutely hate. That's not life. Don't wait till retirement to live. Don't wait till you get to the end of a job that you can't stand to find your happiness. Find out what it is now. In your prayers, ask God, what would you have me do? What would you have me be? Which are two different things, by the way. What God would have you do would be your vocation. What God would have you be, I believe with every fiber of my being, is for you to be happy, joyous, and free. And the way to be happy, joyous, and free is to find out what you're truly supposed to do. So maybe this week you can take a little bit of this message, do some true self-searching. Maybe you can write out a list. What sounds like fun to me? If I can do anything in this world and make a living doing it, what would that be? And then write out what the steps would be to accomplish that. And then just take it one step at a time. You don't have to accomplish the whole thing in one night, but just get on your way to doing it. Start enjoying life today. And each day walk one step closer to reaching your goal. You can do it. I know you can. I know I have some people who listen to this program that are extremely intelligent, extremely talented. I've had the privilege of meeting some of you in public. And I've had some of you send me messages on Facebook and on the website. And some of you who know me in town have run across me in town. Well, we're getting close to our break. And when we come back, my friend Rodney Brumpkin will be with us. And he'll be calling in from the other side of the country. So hopefully he's still awake and remembers to call, and we'll see you on the other side of the break.
The loss of a loved one is one of the most challenging experiences in a person's life. It's hard to know where to turn to make your loved one's final arrangements. Jesse Ruiz at Personal Funeral Planning in Ontario will treat you and your loved one with the respect you deserve. Jesse served in the Marine Corps in Desert Storm and understands what it takes to provide loyal, personalized, and empathetic service to those who need it most. The families of Michael Jackson, Brittany Murphy, Ed McMahon, and many others have trusted Jesse to provide them with the highest level of service and support. To work with Jesse, call 909-762-4027, 909-762-4027, or visit their website, www.4pfp.org. www.4pfp as in personalfuneralplanning.org. Jesse Ruiz and Personal Funeral Planning, veteran owned and operated, helping you plan a personal, lasting tribute for your loved one. www.4pfp.org.
Locals in Loma Linda and Redlands all know and love the Family Homestyle Cafe, the home of the world's largest pancakes and the delicious mouth-watering food cooked up daily by their well-trained chefs. Sizzling thick-cut bacon, ham, and hand-pressed sausage. They take pride in the best quality, great economical values, with better portions served up with the pride of local ownership and great service. Near the corner of Anderson and Redlands Boulevard in Loma Linda, if you haven't tried out Chef Mark's Delights, you haven't had some of the best food in the area. And now, Chef Mark is upgrading his cafe and offering space for on-site gatherings, luncheons, and parties. Add a DJ for a great holiday party or luncheon, and you've got a no-fuss event with all the bells and whistles. Call Mark today at 909-478-9996. That's 909-478-9996. Or stop by the Homestyle Cafe in Loma Linda at Anderson and Redlands Boulevard.
Want it easy? To listen to KCAA on your smartphone, that is, listen to your favorite programs easily. No more buffering, waiting, frustration, or downloading a special app. KCAA 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and 102.3 FM have made it as easy as dialing the phone. Call our special dial-up phone number and listen until your heart's content. Listen in your Snuggie, or whatever. Just listen, or even on the road. Call 1-701-801-4444. That's 1-701-801-4444. And get ready to have your mind expanded on the station that leaves no listener behind. KCAA 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM. You can also listen at kcaaradio.com.
And welcome back. You are tuned to KCAA Radio, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM, or on the web at kcaaradio.com. This is Viewpoint with Father John, and I am your host, Father John Reed. Tonight, my guest is my good friend, Rodney Brumpkin. Rodney was trained as a clergyman and holds an MDiv plus 4 units of CPE, which is Clinical Pastoral Education, which qualifies him to serve as a chaplain. He has experience as a chaplain in hospice and grief counselor, having worked in Southern California for 2 separate hospices. During that time, while I still learn to read, during that time, he set up grief recovery programs for students in schools who had experienced the death of a sibling, parent, or other significant people. In 2013, he went through a series of his own losses, which included both parents, a sister, a friend of many years who was killed by a drunk driver, a godmother who went into dementia. The results was that he chose to take a sabbatical from his role as chaplain and grief counselor. Rodney has spent the last 4 years focusing on the needs of his family and especially those of his 5.5-year-old granddaughter. During that time, he started keeping a journal of his experiences with her as her grandpa, and he is now turning that into a memoir titled Tell Edith I Was Here. His spiritual journey has taken him from being an active participant in organized religion to a point of personal reflection and solitude that he refers to as life with a capital L. It has been a time spent away from involvement in a particular church home, and it has served him well. He compares it to the 40 days Christ spent alone in the wilderness, as well as an extended period of Lent. Rodney is now at a place in his life where he is actively shedding the past and looking ahead to a new chapter of life that will use all of his past experience and abilities he's gained along the way to make one intense push to leave a legacy that will outlive himself and benefit the world around him. Rodney, welcome to the show.
Thank you, John. It's good to hear your voice again.
Good to hear yours, too. We've been friends a long time, and I enjoyed serving with you when we did, and it's been a long time since we've been to a mutual bishop's house to enjoy a good party and socialization. How are things on your side of the country?
Well, they're going very well, considering everything. I, of course, am in Asheville, North Carolina, where I'm speaking to you from.
Yes.
And it's a totally different venue than Southern California, obviously. But I'm enjoying it here, and thank you so much for reading that brief biography, because that pretty much sums up what has been taking place in my life. And my family has been my focus.
Good. By the way, speaking of family and friends, I was told that I would not be forgiven if I didn't tell you that Linda Love sends her best and her love to you, and she wanted me to give you a hug, and I said, I've never tried that telephonically.
Well, it's good to hear from her as well, and please give her my regards.
I sure will. Well, she's supposedly listening right now.
Linda, I miss you, and next time I see you, which I don't know when that will be, I will get that hug from you.
Yes, yes. So, what are you doing these days on that side of the country?
Well, I'm doing a lot of writing, and I'm spending a lot of time with my family. As you pointed out in what you read, 2013 was, well, it was a difficult year in terms of personal loss for myself. As you know, I had spent a lot of time already working with people who were going through loss and transition, and I don't think I ever had any problem empathizing with those people, but it's a very different experience going through that much loss yourself. And fortunately for me, at least having an understanding of the emotions I was experiencing and the losses that were happening, it helped. It helps to at least have an intellectual understanding of that, although it does not, and certainly did not, take away the the sense of emotional pain that went with it. It was a difficult time in that one. It actually started out with news that a friend of mine, very good friend, who I had known for many years, had been killed in Texas one night. Involving, it was an accident involving a drunk driver, and that came as a shock.
Yes.
And then shortly after that, my father literally dropped dead on his feet after kissing my mother and telling her good night. He took one step and dropped dead. And we were preparing for his memorial service. My mother wanted that to be on their anniversary in June, so we planned for that. And almost immediately after his memorial service, my mother went on hospice care, and then later in the summer, August, a month and a half or so after that, she herself died. That was followed by news that my sister's cancer came back, as well as my godmother, who I don't know if you remember her or not, but I was very close to her. She was close to me. She actually helped train me as a chaplain at Loma Linda.
Yes.
She went into dementia very suddenly, very quickly, and I have been her only family practically, so that involved seeing to it that she had the proper care she needed. Then shortly after Christmas, the entire, my immediate family gathered in St. George, Utah to spend time with my sister, who had very courageously faced her final days and her battle with cancer. She ended up passing away shortly after that. So, I really didn't have time to process one loss before another one came along, and so all of these things piled up on top of each other. And my daughter, knowing that it had been a very difficult time for me, invited me to it was originally supposed to be a very short, maybe a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks period of time in San Francisco with her and her family. They were preparing to move over here to North Carolina. It ended up taking quite a bit. Well, it ended up taking a matter of months rather than a matter of weeks. But during that time, I was with them and started to form a really close bond with my granddaughter.
Right.
And that was very therapeutic for me. But while that was taking place, I decided I wanted to do something to really process all that I was experiencing. So I started writing, and part of that writing included posting on Facebook several times a week, usually just brief little vignettes of my time with my granddaughter Edith. These little vignettes would amount to, I think the shortest one was a matter of one sentence, but most of them were 3 to 5 paragraphs long.
And some longer, because I read a number of them.
Yeah. Yeah. But the point is, I didn't write pages and pages. I tried to make the most of space, with the understanding that we live in a time when people's attention spans are very short. And having done that, I started to get feedback from people who appreciated what I was writing.
Good.
And so I kept writing and have been doing that now since, for the last 4 years. And decided here recently that it was time to put it into book form and maybe expand it in such a way that it would actually turn out to be a memoir. And that's what I've been focusing on in between the writing, helping the family out here, etc. So it's been a time for me to step back from the usual hustle and bustle of life, I guess, and concentrate on relationships and people that were important to me. And let me just interject this real quick here. My daughter and her husband went through a difficult period of time for a variety of reasons.
Mm.
And I took it upon myself to see to it that they would have the support they needed to hopefully pull through a very difficult time with their marriage and their family. And they have done that. I am very proud of them. They have done that. So that has been my mission for the last 4 years.
Sounds like a very important mission. Tell me, how's this impacted your spiritual journey?
Well, it's been interesting because up until 4 years ago, 2014, at the end of this whole series of losses, I had been an active member in the Episcopal Church in Redlands and found that to be very much my liking and benefit. But when all of these things started taking place, it wasn't as if there was anything wrong with that kind of experience. It's just that there was so much happening that I felt like I just needed to step back from a lot of things in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And while that was going on, I was also beginning to be aware of a general sense of malaise that many people started feeling at that time, that the world in general was not quite right.
Right.
There was a sense of uneasiness that was growing, which I think probably most of us are aware of today. I think the exception is that we don't feel like something is wrong. And, of course, we have many reasons why we may feel that way. But here's what happened. When I stepped back from, I guess you would say, being a very active participant in that kind of religious experience, I started noticing more the world around me, what was taking place. And there were two things that I really started looking to for help me make sense of matters. And, of course, I've mentioned my granddaughter. She provided me with a new focus of attention, a new object of concern, a new inspiration for life, whatever. But then there was one other thing that really started to become prominent for me, and that was a return to studying the portions of Scripture that dealt with the tragedies of life.
Okay.
And highest among those was the Book of Lamentations.
Right.
And I had never, I had been aware of it, but I had never really focused that much on it. But a colleague of mine at that time gave a workshop on the topic of lament. And it really not only grabbed my attention, but it provided me with a resource that I needed. Because when you take a look at the Book of Lamentations, you understand that Jeremiah, it's not very long. I think it's 5 chapters or so.
Something like that.
It's not, and it's poetic in form, but it's so poignant because this was written by Jeremiah after the collapse of his world. Babylon had come and had destroyed the kingdom of Judah, and most of its inhabitants had been sent elsewhere. And so it was for him like an apocalyptic collapse of his world.
Right.
But what that did for me, reading that, and he's lamenting the fact that it doesn't make sense, and where is God in all of this?
Right.
And it's chaotic. Well, I read that, and I thought, you know what? My experience is not atypical. It's very typical of human life in general. And when Jeremiah expresses the fact that suddenly nothing makes sense, including, where is God, and the feeling that God is silent and things are not the way they should be, I took a lot of comfort from that, because I realized that, here was this prophet, if you will, this man of God, who experienced the very same kind of emotions that I was experiencing at that time. And suddenly it felt like, my life is normal after all. And it's normal to go through periods of time when nothing makes sense and when God seems silent. And, in a very profound way, it gave me a basis of stability in a very difficult time, a time that was very difficult for me. So that was something that really helped. And I have been following this idea of hearing the voice of God through passages of Scripture like that, but also through the experiences of the world around me. At times, things happen which seem coincidental, especially people who have been coming into my life. And it's a hearing of the voice of God that makes sense for me, that has nothing to do with the usual ways in which I thought I had to hear God's voice, if that makes sense.
It absolutely does. Well, I'm up against the break here.
Sure.
Ronnie, I want to thank you for being on tonight. It's good to hear your voice again. And, I'm brought to mind something a friend of mine used to say, Dr. Luis Diagloa, who used to say, crisis time is awakening time. We find new solutions for old situations. And it sounds like that would fit into what you're saying and how you're led to the Book of Lamentations. And it's really great to have you on the show, and let's stay in touch, my friend.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. We'll see you on the other side of the break.
Okay.
The loss of a loved one is one of the most challenging experiences in a person's life. It's hard to know where to turn to make your loved one's final arrangements. Jesse Ruiz at Personal Funeral Planning in Ontario will treat you and your loved one with the respect you deserve. Jesse served in the Marine Corps in Desert Storm and understands what it takes to provide loyal, personalized, and empathetic service to those who need it most. The families of Michael Jackson, Brittany Murphy, Ed McMahon, and many others have trusted Jesse to provide them with the highest level of service and support. To work with Jesse, call 909-762-4027, 909-762-4027, or visit their website, www.4pfp.org. www.4pfp as in personalfuneralplanning.org. Jesse Ruiz and Personal Funeral Planning, veteran-owned and operated, helping you plan a personal, lasting tribute for your loved one. www.4pfp.org.
How would you like to have a large portion of your credit card debt completely forgiven, both the principal and interest? National Credit Card Relief wants to give you free information that shows you how. Thousands of people have used this program to have their credit card debt forgiven. So call now for free information and consultation. We'll give you the secret to this money-saving program absolutely free. Get eye-opening information that could save you thousands of dollars a year or a month, depending on how much you owe. In fact, the more you owe, the more you can save. All you need is $10,000 or more in credit debt, medical bills, or department store debt to qualify. Call for free debt forgiveness information now at 800-546-2909. That's 800-546-2909. To discover the secret to having your credit card debt forgiven, call 800-546-2909. 800-546-2909. Don't wait, call now. 800-546-2909.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-569-9816. That's 800-569-9816. Again, 800-569-9816.
And welcome back. You are tuned in to KCAA Radio, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM, and on the web at kcaaradio.com. This is Viewpoint with Father John, and I am your host, Father John Reed. I'm making my board operator Carlos laugh because I'm reading wrong numbers here, but I finally got them out. If it was perfect, it wouldn't be my show, would it be? And so, but do know that you're welcome back. I want to thank again my friend Ronnie Brumpkin for being with us tonight. It was a great joy hearing his voice. I really had a good time serving with him when we both were at Hospice of the Valleys. And one of the things he didn't mention in his bio that I want to bring up is he did something really innovative, which was a divorce recovery group. And yes, it was put out through the hospice organization, but this was a really progressive organization at that time under George Brunges. And he had some great ideas and allowed us to really exercise our ideas and try some new things just for the community. So it was a lot of fun working together, and we got to try to do some stuff that was really outside the normal focus of a lot of hospice organizations. So it was good talking to my old friend. And in fact, he was the one who recommended me for the job, so I'm really indebted to him. And so tonight we've been talking about finding out what your calling is, hearing the voice of God. And in order to hear that voice, sometimes we got to spend a little time. We have to spend a little time in silence, which is hard to do in our world today. We spend so much time in the fast lane that we forget what quiet sounds like. And without that quiet, we really can't know what our next step is to be. Rodney talked a little bit about what it was like when he stopped the fast pace, and when he changed what he was doing in life, and when he went to spend time with his daughter and her family and his granddaughter Edith. And it brought to mind when I left parish ministry. That was a real change of life. All I've really known in my career, other than doing some chaplaincy, was parish ministry. And when I left it, I had to step back, take a little time to reflect and say, well, what now? What's my next assignment as far as God is concerned? And to not have a schedule that I was on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that's no exaggeration, because for years I would only get 2 or 3 hours sleep at night because either I was called to a hospital or a family was in crisis, or I was being called into a home where somebody was dying, where it was a convalescent home or private residence. And don't get me wrong, I enjoyed that part of priesthood. And I love the fact that my parishioners didn't think twice about calling me at 2 or 3 in the morning if they needed my help. But at some point, if you don't take time to get quiet, you get crazy. One of the things that Richard Rohr says that I really like is, if you don't transform your pain, you will transmit it. And I went for a long time just on full throttle, as we say, where I come from. And I finally reached that point where I hit the wall. And I was of no use to anybody at that moment. And it made it real clear to me, I need time off. Because now I'm running on self-will, not God will. And I can remember hooking up with a buddy of mine who's a Jesuit priest, and he could see that I, as we say in our circle, bleeding and on fire at the time. And he said, you know, you have to take one day off a week and go to at least 2 retreats a year, because you cannot transmit something you haven't got. And that was hard for me to do because I am a self-admitted workaholic. If you can work 40 hours, I should be able to work 80. After all, that's the priesthood. And I took a lot of pride in all the hours I could put in. But when you work that hard, you do one thing. You lose yourself. Not in a healthy sense to where you put yourself aside to be of service to others, but where you really lose yourself in who you are and who you're meant to be. And I can still sometimes get that crazy. I do a lot of funerals. I do a lot of counseling. And every once in a while, I feel that need that I have to just take a day off, go up to the botanical gardens or go to the beach. Next month I'm going to take a few days and go spend a couple of days with my wife up in the mountains. I have a friend who has a cabin up there. It's going to let us use their cabin. And it's funny how God puts these things right in the path if I pay attention to it, because things have been real busy lately. And I just happened to meet with that friend who I hadn't talked to in 2 or 3 years. We've been meaning to get together, but we both got real busy, and he called me up and said, let's do breakfast. And he mentioned using the cabin, and the timing was perfect. I thought, wow, thanks, God. I really do need the break at the moment with all the stuff going on. I mean, it's good stuff. I'm having a great time. But if I don't take time, I suddenly start listening to me and stop listening to God. The reason I share that with you is I suspect I'm not alone in that. I suspect that there could be times when you, my listeners, my brothers and my sisters, get so busy with life and with good intentions that you lose what the goal is. And when I say the goal, I mean working hand in hand with God, however you understand God. And there are many ways to understand God, so don't think that you have to just take my understanding. This is just how I see it. However you view God is just as valid. And that's one reason for the show, so you don't have to think that there's only one way to see things. I think one of the reasons there's so much dysfunction in the Christian church is there's over 30,000 denominations just in the Christian church, and each one saying that this is the only way you can look at it. Can you hear the silliness of that? And so when you tune into this program, I hope you know the things I share with you. I try to share with you some experience. I try to share some wisdom I found along the way. But I also try to honor your experience as well. You know, Rodney and I come from 2 different religious backgrounds. And we loved working together because we could honor each other's views. We didn't try to convert each other. And we had a third guy we worked with. His name was Randy. And Randy was a UCC church, a United Church of Christ. And Randy was a wonderful chaplain. And the 3 of us just made the 3 amigos in the religious world, you know, because we were always having each other's back and always helping each other work with different patients. And I really think we served a lot of people well because God used all 3 of us in different ways and brought us together that we could help accent one another and help to hold one another up and bring each other to new heights. And so that's always great. So wherever you are in life tonight, take a moment, breathe, let go a little bit. Don't need to be so right. You know, Lent is a time of letting go. Lent is a time of getting reset, getting ready for a new awakening. And I think it's kind of funny that Easter this year is on April Fool's Day, which shows me God does have a sense of humor, or whoever puts the calendars together for the church does as well. And I have to tell you something I have to share, and some of you will really be offended I'm sharing it, but you should be used to that by now. But a friend of mine on Facebook said, making the analogy of April Fool's Day also being Easter, he says, can you guess which grandpa is going to be putting some raw eggs in the Easter egg hunt? You know, if you can't have a little bit of fun, laugh a little bit, you're missing out on life. Did you know that Jesus had a wicked sense of humor? Some people may be shocked to hear that, But Jesus had a great sense of humor. The problem is, because it's hard to translate humor from one language to another, people hear what was meant to be funny and they lose the entire punchline. I get that with my wife. She speaks Spanish, I speak English, and she'll sometimes tell me something that's supposed to be really funny. I just kind of look at her, and then she has to explain what it would mean without the influence of the Spanish language, because we do construct our sentences different. And sometimes I'll try to have her translate a joke to her mom. Her mom speaks Spanish and not so much English, and she just looks like, okay, why is that supposed to be funny? Because it doesn't translate well. And my wife's looking at me like maybe it's just the joke's not funny, but I know that couldn't be the truth. Well, the same is with Aramaic. And what makes it even more difficult is Jesus spoke things in Aramaic, but they were written in Greek. And they were written a long time after the resurrection. I'm going to say something that's going to shock you, but it's important for your education of the scriptures, that none of the disciples could read or write. Only 3% of the population could read or write. Only the really rich people could afford to send their people for literacy training. And none of them knew Greek, and they couldn't write in Greek. And so as you read the scriptures and you wonder why some of the humor doesn't come through, I'm fortunate because I had to study in the original text some of the stuff, and so I was able to put together, okay, this is meant to be humorous, and I wasn't the only one. There was several scholars who found the same thing. But think about this for a moment. The scriptures weren't written, the Gospels weren't written until almost 60 years after Jesus was here. And the Gospels weren't the first written. The letters from Paul were written about 30 to 35 years after Jesus was here. Now, Paul was converted approximately 2 to 3 years after the resurrection. But most of the people who wrote down these scriptures learned everything through oral traditions. These were stories that were told from one generation to the next generation to the next generation. Some things were added, some things were taken away. Now, some people get really mad when you say that, but history is history. We're not trying to be blasphemous here. We do try to give really good scholarly information here, and that's some scholarly information that you might want to be aware of. What does that mean for us? It means that beyond the scriptures, we use the scriptures for guidance, absolutely. But at some point, we need to have a personal relationship with God as we understand God. And the only way we get that is by getting quiet for a while. I can remember my spiritual development. I was really struggling with this, and a good friend of mine, again, the Jesuit priest, Father Tom, he said to me, for the next 30 days, this is your prayer. And I want you to say it every morning and every night and pay attention to what happens. And the prayer goes like this: God, reveal yourself to me in my life in a way that I will understand. Do this every day, every night. Pay attention. 30 days. So I did. Because if you think you have confusion with religion, I grew up with a lot of confusion. And then when I'm studying the scriptures as a seminarian, there's a lot of discrepancy between some of the Gospels. We call the synoptics Mark, Luke, and Matthew, because you can line them up and a lot of stories will line up. But there's stories in some that aren't in others. And then you get the Gospel of John, which is nothing like the other three. Well, they were told from different points of view, from different communities in the Christian family. And so we have to look at the messages. They weren't concerned with historical accuracy. They were concerned with the message. And the most important part of that message is you are loved. You matter. You weren't just put on here for no reason. You weren't put here simply to suffer. You were put here to be an expression of God. And tonight's show has been about discovering what that expression is, what that gift is. And I hope that between this show and next week, you're going to take some time, you're going to spend some time in silence Take 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes at noon, 5 minutes at night if you're just starting out. Just take a little timer and just try it. You know, I don't leave the house without a minimum of 20 minutes of silence a day. I start each day with at least an hour of prayer and meditation. That it's equaled out, prayer and meditation. Because I can't help others if I don't first get the power before I go out. And I suspect it's the same with you. And we're creating a community here together. And so I hope as part of this community, you'll try some of these things I suggest. From time to time, I do a retreat, and if you want to be part of some of these retreats, you can let me know, either by going to the website, which is www.viewpointwithfatherjohn.com. Again, that's one word. Or you can join us on the Facebook page, which is Viewpoint with Father John on Facebook. And we'd love to bring you along. The different kind of retreats I do some on grief. Sometimes I do a one-day retreat on grief. Sometimes I do a retreat on relationships. Sometimes on letting go of fear. Sometimes on prayer and meditation. So if you want to be involved with some of these as part of this community from the radio, please do. Also, when you go to the website, if you want to help support this program, please press the button that says support, because we need your support to stay on the air. And part of tonight's the program has been sponsored in part by St. Teresa's Open Catholic Seminary, progressive, independent, truly Catholic education for ordained ministry and lay leadership. And again, if you want more information on that school, you can call 1-800-790-9739. Again, that's 1-800-790-9739. I want to give a big thank you to my engineer, Carlos. He's the one who makes all this possible. Without him, I'd just be talking into an empty microphone. And I used to do that when I was a kid with a Mistral microphone. No one else listened there either. But he's done a great job, and it's always an honor to get to work with him. And I want to give a shout out to my wife, Gabby, who's on the other side of the studio and keeping me in line and making sure I don't say anything I'll have to pay the FCC for. And until next week, if no one has told you that they loved you, let me be the first. God bless.